Story 1. I always thought it was a traffic accident, but my therapist said that meant something was wrong with me. Story 2. I have many choices. 1. Diabetes-related issues. 2. Cancer. A redhead who tried to tan a lot as a teenager. 3. Neuropathy-related issues. 4. I inadvertently offend someone in traffic and they retaliate. One of my cats trips me, causing me to fall and potentially break my neck. Story 3. I envision a scenario where I have the right of way at a four-way stop. I proceed and they do too, resulting in a collision. I exit my vehicle, shouting at them, and they draw a firearm and shoot me. Story 4. I will slip on an empty can of tuna placed on the floor by my wife so that the cats can lick the tuna juice from it. Story 5. Dear God, anything but a neurodegenerative disease. I'm betting on cancer and hoping for something quiet during my sleep. Story 6. I have always had this feeling that I would die by murder, not out of fear, but with the thought that I would face it someday. Story 7. I have had a recurring nightmare for decades. I am using a long stainless steel urinal, like the ones seen in sports venues. Someone I do not know approaches from behind and shoots me in the back of the head. It freaks me out every time I need to use the restroom at a baseball game. Story 8. At the rate I'm going by doing something incredibly unwise, I can run laps around anyone when it comes to academic knowledge, but practical knowledge is a whole different matter. As a wise man once said, you know why they have sidewalks? Because the streets aren't for everyone. I'm staying on the sidewalk, but seeing as I'm more impulsive than a toddler, the asphalt does look appealing. Story 9. I ride my electric scooter 1.5 miles to the train station and 2 miles back. Everyone runs stop signs and does not use turn signals, so I am concerned that one of these days I might get hit by a car and end up on the ground, potentially injured or worse. Story 10. Fighting 12 fully grown female saltwater crocodiles, I barrel rolled all of them until they died. However, I was hunted down because I was considered too dangerous. I managed to defeat several agents, but they grew furious, and I ultimately lost my life in a battle with a transformer while trying to protect the planet. Story 11. Whenever I think about this, I always feel that with my luck, I will end up dying in a car crash or some other freak accident that is beyond my control. Story 12. Heart failure and heart attack. I developed serious hypertension and coronary heart disease in my early 40s due to alcohol consumption. I also just found out I have lymphoma, which is reportedly quite treatable. However, I am uncertain if my heart will endure treatment. Story 13. With the limited family medical history I know and my current lifestyle, it is likely a heart attack. However, I plan on getting a motorcycle which could change things. Story 14. I'm going to be harmed by an uncontrollable external force. A car accident, robbery, or anaphylaxis. Anything is possible and it feels out of my control. I have been convinced of this for months now. Story 15. Car accident. I have felt a certainty about this for years. I will be surprised if it is anything else. Story 16. I am either going to have a stroke or a heart attack due to constant arguments with my wife. Things are not going well. Story 17. Either from a heart attack, an accident, or by wandering into the forest to be covered in moss and become truly immortal. Story 18. How do I think? Well, I think it won't happen. I will not become immortal after artificial intelligence becomes aware and superintelligent. I will outlive the Earth and watch the stars fade away with other immortals until we are forced to gamble our lives crossing into or creating a new universe. Story 19. Suicide is not a reflection of hatred for life. It stems from a desire for a painless departure on one's own terms after having lived a fulfilling life. The thought of growing old and suffering from a debilitating illness is not appealing. If I still have loved ones when that time comes, they may have objections and I might want to stay a bit longer, but for now, that is how I feel. Story 20. Heart attack or stroke. I have been overweight my whole life, and it's unlikely to change no matter how many times I say it will. Even if I did manage to lose weight, there is already significant damage from all those years. Story 21. Maybe it's cancer or another kind of illness. I don't know, I always kind of pictured dying in a hospital with something. Story 22. Probably some failure of the human body, such as a stroke or heart failure, that runs in the family. Story 23. I'm sorry to hear that you're feeling this way. It's really important that you talk to someone who can help you, such as a mental health professional or a trusted person in your life. Story 24. Probably petting something I shouldn't. Kitties, doggies, sharks, and venomous snakes. They all can catch these hands for scritches. My love of animals wipes out that survival instinct completely, except for bears. I am legitimately scared of bears. Story 25. Watching something I will not physically be able to do because I'm old and thinking, I could do that. Story 26. I will be found in the bucket of my truck, elevated, having had a heart attack, I'm sure, or having fallen off a power pole or some other work-related accident. Story 27. I have thought about this and I have a list that includes suicide, medical conditions, or car accidents. Story 28. Probably some natural cause. I don't know exactly. Prostate cancer runs in my family, but no one has ever died from it. Story 29. I accidentally caused my own demise from heat stroke this summer at work. This is currently the most likely way I might suffer a fatal outcome. Story 30. I killed a crow earlier. It just sat there, squawking and bleeding. I shot it in the head to be humane. It was the least I could do. Story 31. Either going off tour while on safari, saying, here, kitty, 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 or trying to pet an alligator. Story 32. Statistically, heart disease is a serious concern. Shortly after saying some variation of the phrase, it'll be fine, it's not that dangerous, I find myself contemplating the risks. Ideally, I imagine being run over by a semi-truck driven by an incredible figure. Story 33. I think I will drown. My mom had a water birth, and there's something harmonious about water, both bringing me into life and ultimately snuffing it out. Story 34. I either die peacefully in my sleep when I'm old, or I develop dementia or another condition that makes me unable to care for myself. In that case, I would take the gun from my drawer and end my life. Story 35. I had the flu, pneumococcal pneumonia, and sepsis in January. I came close to severe complications, and once you've had pneumococcal pneumonia and sepsis, it is easy to contract them again. With a school-aged child who brings home all sorts of illnesses, I am quite anxious about the next flu season. I don't think I would survive a second time. Story 36. I might get angry and do something foolish, like yell at the wrong person. Someone record this in case I appear in one of those documentaries. Story 37. I am still struggling with this situation. What is the problem? Please be honest about it. How do you expect me to fulfill everything you want when you have lied from the beginning? Story 38. I had a heart attack in 2019 at the age of 49. I take my medication regularly, but I have a dark feeling that it may happen again sooner rather than later. Story 39. Cancer or diabetes run in the family. However, I would like to take control of my own health. I've been thinking about this a lot lately. It's a thought that is always present. Story 40. Some complications from stress levels, such as a heart attack, can be severe. My blood pressure is concerning due to stress, and I struggle with multiple anxiety disorders, which lead to intense panic attacks during which I genuinely fear I am going to die. Initially, I called ambulances several times because I thought I was experiencing a heart attack or an allergic reaction. I worry that eventually one of these episodes will result in a heart attack and could be fatal. Story 41. Just to add a spin to the discussion, I am a horror author who recently finished writing a book about dying and going to a rehabilitation version of purgatory. The main character dies by slipping in the shower after using his sister's item. He meets other individuals in the afterlife who also have embarrassing death stories. They must process trauma and grief. It's called Hi, My Name Was by M.B. Green. If this sounds interesting, it might be worth a look. If this sounds unappealing and unnecessary, please feel free to ignore me. Story 42. Either overdose or some health problem caused by years of painkiller use and abuse, probably liver failure. Story 43. Probably something silly like tripping over my own feet while holding snacks. leading to an embarrassing fall due to clumsiness and snacks. Story 44. Right now, I am thinking my life could be taken from me, but another part of me thinks an accident could be in the works, and I just can't tell when. Story 45. I hope it's something like the end of the book or movie Bliss. The circumstances, not the mechanics of it. I've already had a falling out with my partner and moved to the middle of nowhere to plant trees, so I'm not far off. Story 46. I have severe asthma, and I either like fiery women or feel trapped while I sleep. I often kick, toss, and flip in my sleep at 2:47 in the morning. Story 47. I will die in a death camp after being arrested for not properly averting my eyes while in the presence of God Emperor Trump. Story 48. Painfully, my mind will be gone, leaving me scared and confused. My family will want to keep me alive, but I will just want to die. I won't even know who they are. Story 49. I feel like I will die in some sudden and unfair way, not from a car crash or anything like that. Car crashes are preventable to some extent. I feel like I'm just going to pass out and hit my head on the pavement. Story 50. Since I was younger, I have always strangely thought that I would not get older than 30. It's a peculiar feeling that I cannot really explain, but I feel like some unknown force is affecting me from the inside. It's a sense of knowing that I am not getting older without truly understanding why, but the feeling is present. Story 51. Probably something that randomly appears in the next 5 years, like brain cancer or a rare heart defect that my dad had. Story 52. Some forms of cancer, diabetes, or heart attacks are statistically likely, and many of my relatives have died from cancer. Story 53. Hit by a train. Not that I interact with trains, cross train tracks, or hang around trains ever. I've just always been sure, since I was a little kid, that I would be hit by a train. Story 54. Realistically, natural causes at a young age. My health is poor and I'm only 19. I'm thinking I have maybe another 30 to 40 years at best. For a fun answer though, a mysterious plane crash, the kind that people make video essays about. Story 55. Probably from pneumonia at an older age or something. How I want to die, however, is by approaching a tiger and petting it. I will get to pet a tiger and the tiger gets to have a meal. It's a win-win situation. Story 56. I have a facial twitch that makes me tighten my face several times a minute. To everyone else, it looks like a slightly aggressive blink. It's stress-induced and gets worse with more stress, so I think one day I might stress myself to the point that my twitch will pop a blood vessel and cause an aneurysm. That or Alzheimer's, whichever comes first. Story 57. Something related to a terminal condition like cancer. I hope not, but I think that may be how I will die. Story 58. Probably a heart attack from dealing with the sometimes difficult and ungrateful individuals in my life, or one of my clients will harm me as I work in a group home for people with mental disabilities. Story 59. My friend once said, I've always seen you dying in a tragic, yet hilarious accident, and it just stuck with me. I think he's right. Story 60. Once I had a dream, a very clear dream. I was going down into a cave, and an old man told me, you will die in a restaurant on an island. Maybe it will be like that. Story 61. Probably in the hospital with some medical issues. Though honestly, I usually picture myself dying in a tornado, flooding, falling into a sinkhole, or some other natural disaster. Story 62. Accident and careless complacency. I let my guard down and risk my life. I have a near miss with death nearly every day, just because I couldn't see an incoming car. Our work vehicles are dangerous. Story 63. I have a feeling of impending harm from a car accident, but more realistically, diabetes and my sweet tooth are going to take me out. Story 64. Of a stroke. Mid-stroke maybe, because I had a stroke once before, it makes it more likely. And also, well, I do love a good stroke often, so statistically, Story 65. I will be run over by an older model car. Not sure of the exact year. Something from the 1995 to 2010 era before the more sleek body details were introduced. It will be goldfish yellow but pretty faded. I am pretty sure it's the front bumper I keep seeing, but it might be the rear. Story 66. Stroke or heart attack during dialysis is a significant concern. Additionally, heart catheter infections or failed dialysis can also pose serious risks. However, I don't believe I have much fight left in me. Story 67. When I am around 60, I want to have enough money to book a jet to fly me over a volcano. Then, I will jump into the lava with 10 kilograms of gold strapped to my body. Story 68. If I had painful, incurable cancer, I would like to go out in the woods on a steep mountainside with a bottle of good scotch and some pills, where nobody has to deal with the aftermath. A big problem, though, is tying up loose ends like a death certificate before they can implement my will. Story 69. Perhaps in the conflict between my nation and the one that has been spreading the corrosive roots of terrorism here for decades. Story 70. Cancer, I already beat stage 4 at 26 years old. However, I assume that it may eventually take my life. Let's hope not. Story 71. Unless it's of natural causes, my guess is due to work. My first brush with death was 2 years ago when a ladder I was climbing broke away from the building. Luckily, the bottom screws held, and I managed to climb down after the ladder finished shaking. I no longer take life for granted. Story 72. I don't know if this is fair since it's not my thought, but my mother seems to think that I'm going to get hit by a car or run over by a train. I've never, as far as I know, been a bad street crosser. However, I would think I'd probably die from something heart-related. Story 73. I may slip on soap in the bathroom without realizing I am on a cliff and falling into the valley. I might not notice the snake and walk past it. Story 74. At this point, I am happy. I believe I am smart enough to know when I am dying, and I trust that I am wise enough to face my time with dignity and respect. I just hope my loved ones do not suffer. Story 75. I have escaped drowning 3 different times in my life. I would say that maybe for the 4th time, no one will save me. Story 76. My dad died last week from cancer. My grandpa died 2 years ago from cancer. And my aunt died 8 years ago from cancer. The likelihood is high that I will also die from cancer. Story 77. I hope it will be from a hail of bullets as I defend my home from an advanced goblin race, but I think it will probably be from something trivial like falling from the toilet. Story 78. In an accident, most likely a car or motorbike accident, I have had plenty until today. I crashed 2 cars in total, had 3 minor accidents, and 3 minor motorcycle incidents, but only 1 car accident was my fault. Story 79. Car accident, cancer, or amyotrophic lateral sclerosis. An accident is one of the methods of death that frightens me the most, while the other 2 conditions run in my family. Story 80. I hope I die like my grandpa, peacefully in his sleep, not screaming like the 30 passengers in his bus. Story 81. Either with my help or in the event of a motorcycle or car crash, I would likely still be to blame. Story 82. I imagine getting hit by an incurable disease, and then when the pain becomes unbearable and my life becomes intolerable, I take my own life with a quick cut across the throat. Just like that, I would have peace. However, I might also upset someone, and they might choose to confront me. Story 83. Either diabetes or suicide. Diabetes is prevalent in my entire generation. However, that is not the case with suicide. I am not planning on it, but I might be the first. Story 84. I can imagine myself accidentally walking into a place where an active shooting is happening. It sounds like something I would do. Story 85. Too many possible reasons. But knowing myself, I will most likely receive a Darwin Award. Seriously, I think it will be a heart attack. Story 86. Breast cancer. I have been monitored for nodules for 15 years. I tell myself that one day, inevitably, I will have to face the reality. Story 87. In my own bed, at the age of 80, with a belly full of wine and a girl nearby. Story 88. Hopefully, it will be so impressive that people will be amazed yet curious about how such an elderly man could engage with so many attractive women. Story 89. Suicide or a heart-related issue due to a disrupted sleep cycle, or if lucky, picking the wrong mushroom. Wildlife poses a risk as well, as I live in an area with wild boars and bears. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.